Hi, I'm Nikki at Silkscreen, and I'm going to be taking you through the second part of the screen printing process, how to coat your screen with emulsion. So before we start, we need to make sure that this part of the process is done in a dimmed lit room. For the purpose of this video, we've raised the lights in here, so we're going to be doing this in normal lighting. The emulsion is light sensitive, so if you don't work in a dim lit room, it could affect the emulsion and then you'll get poor stencil. So today I'm going to show you and walk you through firstly how to sensitize your emulsion. So emulsion often comes as a two-part product. You do get one-part emulsions, but our Art to Silkscreen emulsion is a two-part product. So we're going to first dilute our sensitizer powder. Make sure you read the instructions on the bottle, which will tell you how much water to add to your sensitizer. And then we're going to add it into the emulsion. So we've already got our distilled water. We're using 50 ml to add into our sensitizer powder. So remove the lid of the sensitizer bottle and then pour your distilled water into your sensitizer powder. Replace the lid and then shake well. Make sure you do definitely shake this, otherwise you'll end up with some sensitizer residue stuck at the bottom, and you need to make sure that all of that sensitizer powder is mixed into your emulsion. When that's ready, open the lid of the emulsion. So you can see that the emulsion is actually blue in colour to start with. You do get different coloured emulsions, but our Art to Silkscreen emulsion is blue. Remove the lid of your sensitizer powder. Now this is the light sensitive part, so you don't want this being exposed to natural light, which can emit UV rays. And then pour it into your emulsion. It's like a brown liquidy, yellowy browny colour. Make sure you get all of it in there. And then using a palette knife, stir it into your emulsion. You'll see the emulsion change from blue to green. Or if you're using other emulsions, it will change colour, but as long as that emulsion does change colour, you know that that sensitizer is doing something. Make sure you get all around the edges of the emulsion as well, and right to the bottom, because if you don't, you'll end up with some parts of the emulsion being light sensitive and some parts not. Okay, so once that's actually stirred in thoroughly, we recommend you do leave the emulsion to sit for at least 24 hours before you use it. Because as you can see already, little bubbles, small bubbles start to appear, and you'd want to wait at least 24 hours so all of those bubbles disperse and you get settled emulsion. Otherwise, what would happen is if you coat your screen with emulsion that's all bubbled up, you might end up with gaps in it. So make sure that those bubbles have dispersed. Make sure you do replace the lid as well and store it in a cool, dry cupboard. So here's one that we sensitized earlier. As you can see, we've left it for at least 24 hours and there's no bubbles in it. That's what your emulsion needs to look like before you coat your screen. So, moving on, you need to select the right coating trough for your screen size. Now, this not only makes it a much easier part of the process, but it also stops it from being a messy part of the process, which often tends to put people off. It doesn't have to be messy. If you have the right size coating trough, you can sometimes get away with one coat on either side. If you end up with gaps in your coat, you could go over it again and do 2 coats on either side and then scooping off. Today we're going to coat once on either side and then we're going to scoop off. Scooping off is also known as levelling off the emulsion as well. So That's to ensure you get a nice even coat. So we're going to pour some of our emulsion into our coating trough, making sure that there's plenty in there to cover the screen. Don't overfill it though, otherwise you'll end up with lots of spillages. Okay, replace the lid on the emulsion whenever you can. Okay, so taking your coating trough, we're going to actually coat our screen using just one hand only. Some people coat it with two hands, but the method that I prefer is using one hand. That way, your weight from your one hand is distributed evenly across the coating trough. Generally, people have one arm stronger than the other, so it can tend to go on a little bit uneven if you coat with two hands. It's absolutely fine if that's your preferred method. There's no right way or wrong way of doing it. It's just, we're going to show you today how to coat it with one hand. So holding your coating trough in your coating hand, support the screen with the other hand. Start from the bottom of the screen, and I always start from the inside of the screen as well, which I call the print side. This is the side that the ink is going to go on. So make sure that your emulsion is levelled off evenly inside your coating trough, and allow the coating trough to sit against the mesh. I do sometimes slightly tilt the screen towards the coating trough just for that little bit of extra support. So tilting the coating trough towards the mesh, then when the emulsion has touched the mesh, start working your way up the mesh, pressing firmly but not too hard. When it reaches the top, tilt the coating trough back so that the emulsion falls back into the coating trough, and then scoop off. So that's our first side coated. Now we need to do the same on the second side. Start from the bottom of the mesh, tilt the coating trough towards the mesh, and then work your way up the screen, keeping an even amount of pressure the whole way. And then when you get to the top, allow the emulsion to fall back into the coating trough. And that side's done too. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do what's known as scooping off or levelling off. So levelling off is just basically go back to the bottom of the screen, keep the coating trough tilted backwards so that the emulsion doesn't go back onto the mesh, then pressing nice and firm, not too hard though so you don't damage the mesh. Go back up the screen. You can see the emulsion going back into the coating trough from your previous coat. Levelling off is really important to make sure you don't get big blobby areas of emulsion on the screen. So once again, we're going to just level off on this side. Go up the mesh. As you can see, there's quite a lot of emulsion going back into the coating trough. And there you go, that's your screen. So now we just need to dry our emulsion on the screen. We need to just make sure that this is dried evenly and not too much in one area. So we're showing you how to dry it using a fan heater today. Always keep your fan heater at least a foot away from the screen. This is so that you don't get any too over-dried patches on the screen that could end up causing overexposure problems. You'll see as the emulsion starts to dry, you'll see it starting to change to a slightly more matte finish. So now our screen is dry. We're just going to run our fingertips slightly over the mesh. As long as it's not tacky, it means it's ready for the next part of the process, exposing your image. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and see you next time.